I found out my husband's childhood sweetheart was dying while I was lying on the operating table, waiting for him to perform my heart surgery. Snap. The sound of my husband, Ethan, tossing his scalpel aside echoed in the quiet room. He ripped off his surgical gloves and threw them in the trash. "I can't do this surgery," he said, his voice tight. "Get Joseph." This was the 20th minute since Oriana's accident. My calm, rational husband was finally cracking. He was halting my surgery, turning his back on me, pretending to be composed as he removed his surgical gear. But his hands were trembling. Oriana was in trouble, and he was losing his mind. "Professor Ethan," a nurse said urgently, "your wife's heart rate is climbing. She's getting anxious. Are you sure you want to leave now?" A dull ache spread through my chest. I looked past him and told the nurse, "It's fine. Anyone can do the surgery." The other people in the room looked at me with pity. I just managed a smile. The day Oriana came back, I knew my marriage to Ethan was over. Asking him to choose me over a dying Oriana, he couldn't do it. And I didn't want to trust my life to a man like that anyway. The operating room door slid open. A tall, masked figure stepped inside. It was Ethan's colleague, Joseph. As they passed each other, Ethan's voice was low and strained. "Julia's surgery, I'm leaving her to you." He paused. "If I don't go now, I'll regret it for the rest of my life." His words fell like stones. Tears I didn't want to shed began to stream down my face. "How pathetic, Julia. You're being abandoned again. What are you even crying for?" A shadow fell over me. A cold scalpel gently touched my skin. The famously aloof Dr. Joseph spoke, his tone as indifferent as ever. "What are you crying for? You're not going to die on my table." The surgery took 2 hours. By the time they wheeled me out, the sky had turned dark, and rain was pouring against the hospital windows. Joseph stayed by my side until he was sure my vitals were stable. The anesthesia was just starting to wear off, the pain returning in waves that left me in a cold sweat, when Ethan's call finally came. I answered, but the voice on the other end wasn't his. It was a lively, playful female voice. "Whoops, sorry, Julia," Oriana chirped. I don't know what his friend told him, but it was just a little scrape. Ethan ran off in a total panic without even checking on me first. A light, teasing laugh followed. I already gave him a piece of my mind. A grown man, still so impulsive. Her voice was a little too sweet, a little too familiar. I could hear rustling on the other end, and then Ethan's voice, sharp and annoyed. "I told you, if you don't want the wound to get infected, stay put." Then, to someone else, "She just had surgery. She can't have milk tea." "It's all for you," another male voice his friend whined in the background. "I just said you were in a car accident and he hung up on me. Why am I getting dragged into your little lover's quarrel?" A nauseating wave of pain spread from my incision, tightening my chest until I could barely breathe. I had been about to ask Ethan for painkillers, but the words died in my throat. Without a sound, I hung up the phone. A moment later, the door opened. A nurse walked in, holding out a small paper cup. "Here," she said with a kind smile. "Dr. Joseph prescribed this for your pain. He said to take it and get some rest." I had to get back to work, so I was discharged just 3 days after my surgery. The moment I stepped out of the hospital, I saw Ethan's car parked at the curb. Instinctively, I reached for the passenger side door. Just as my fingers touched the handle, a soft gasp came from inside. Only then did I see her. Oriana. She was leaning back from the driver's side, pulling away from Ethan. Her collar was slightly messed up, and there was a provocative little glint in her eye. I froze. "Julia, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice trembling as if she were about to cry. "I didn't mean to." Ethan calmly untangled a single strand of her hair from his watch. His tone was cool, with a hint of a warning. "Don't be ridiculous. You'll make Julia misunderstand." Then, he turned to me, his face a mask of casual explanation. She was just reaching for something and her hair got caught. I knew Ethan wasn't lying. He prided himself on being straightforward and honorable. Before we got married, he laid it all out for me. I have a past, but after we're married, I will be loyal to you. But sometimes, that loyalty had blurry edges. It created the perfect breeding ground for ambiguity. Like right now. I swallowed the bitter taste rising in my throat. Ethan, we need to talk, I said, my voice tight. Alone. Sensing the shift, Oriana immediately bit her lip. Ethan, I think I should just get a cab. Julia seems upset. But Ethan's focus was still on her. Can you even walk by yourself? Oriana's face went pale, but she forced a smile. I'll try. She didn't move, though. She just sat there, waiting. Even Ethan turned to look at me, his gaze as calm and deep as ever. But I knew that look. He was waiting for me to say something, preferably something understanding and mature. He wanted me to be the bigger person. Not this time. I was done swallowing my feelings. I stepped back from the car, making way for her to exit. Get out, I said, my voice flat. There are plenty of cabs at the corner. Oriana stiffened. Her eyes welled up with tears as she silently climbed out of the car. I slid into the still warm passenger seat. A suffocating silence filled the car. After a long moment, Ethan finally spoke, his tone gentle, almost placating. You don't need to take it out on her just because I had to leave your surgery. You know it was an emergency call. I was just doing my job. If it had been anyone else in that accident, I would have done the same thing. I didn't have the energy to argue, to pick apart the real reasons he left me on that table. I was just tired. So tired. Ethan, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Let's get a divorce. The car screeched to a halt, throwing my purse and belongings to the floor. Ethan's brow furrowed. Julia, what's the point of saying things like that? Is this because of Oriana? I met his gaze, the dull ache in my chest flaring up again. Yes, I said. It's because of Oriana. Just then, a sharp cry pierced the air, followed by the blare of a car horn. We both looked toward the sound. At the street corner, in the most conspicuous spot imaginable, Oriana had fallen to the ground. A crowd was already starting to gather. A dry, mocking laugh escaped my lips. Well, look at that. Your precious Oriana took a tumble. Aren't you going to go check on her? A chill seemed to radiate from Ethan's entire body. He put the car back in gear, his voice suddenly ice cold. You're already divorcing me, he said without looking at me. Why would I care what happens to a stranger? The drive home was silent and cold. When we walked in, our cat, Marshmallow, immediately trotted over, rubbing against our legs and meowing. Ethan had gotten him for me the year we were married. At night, he always slept on the bed right between us. Ethan stared at the cat for a long moment before scooping him up. Marshmallow, he said, his voice laced with a theatrical helplessness. Mom and Dad had a fight. Can you ask Mom to forgive Dad for me? Marshmallow, as if on cue, let out a soft meow and looked right at me. This was Ethan's go-to move whenever we argued. He knew the cat was my weakness. But this time I just pressed my lips together and said nothing. He lowered his head, his voice softening. I had Joseph prescribe you some painkillers. Have you been taking them? My head snapped up. You told him to do that? Ethan raised an eyebrow. Who else would have? You thought I wouldn't care? He leaned in and kissed me, his long fingers cupping my face. The coolness of his skin sent a shiver through me. Julia, he murmured, his lips brushing against my ear. I'm not stupid enough to throw away our marriage. Be good. Let's not get a divorce, all right? No. He wasn't stupid. Just selfish. If Oriana had come back 3 years ago, I honestly wouldn't have cared. After all, Ethan and I were a product of a blind date. A perfect match on paper, my family of academics, his of prestigious doctors. A marriage of convenience, emotionally distant from the start. I was a university professor, and he was always buried in his work. In our first year of marriage, I could count the number of dates we had on one hand. I don't even remember when I started to fall for him. Maybe it was just time. Or maybe it was that rainy night I got into a fender bender. The other driver was screaming at me, and I was just standing there, shaking. Ethan rushed over in the downpour. My composed, respectable professor of medicine actually threw a punch for me. With a bruised cheek, he'd wiped the tears from my face, his tone a mix of exasperation and affection. "What are you crying for?" he'd said. "Julia, you can always count on me." The man who once told me I could always count on him 3 days after I got out of the hospital, he appeared on Oriana's social media feed. I had just finished a lecture and was in my office filling my water bottle. I opened my phone, and a post from Oriana popped up. It was a photo of her knee, freshly bandaged. The caption read, "The price of being abandoned halfway through a drive." Luckily, the esteemed Professor Ethan came over to change my dressing personally. A few minutes later, she deleted it. Then, a new one appeared. "Got scolded. Next time, I'll be good and wait for you to come back." This time, it was a selfie. She looked gentle and innocent, her lips slightly swollen and pouted. Like a kitten, pitiful and just begging to be coddled. In the bottom corner of the photo, I saw Ethan's watch, unbuckled and set aside on the table next to her. My hand trembled as I set my water bottle down. A wave of nausea rolled in my stomach. It wasn't until a colleague called my name that I snapped out of it. I recognized the table in the background. It was from his parents' house. He had taken Oriana home to see his parents. Ethan's parents always said I had a mean streak. As a kid, if a dog bit me, I'd bite it right back. And now that things had gone this far, there was no reason to stay quiet. I clicked on her post and gave it a like. Then, I left a comment. "Nice watch." After that, I put my phone on silent. By the time I finished my next lecture, it was almost noon. I checked my phone. 7 missed calls from Ethan. 3 from Oriana. Her post was gone. Ethan's call came through again. His voice was exasperated. "Julia, why aren't you answering your phone?" "It's Monday," I said calmly. "I was teaching." He paused, probably remembering I never took calls during class. In the silence, I could practically hear the gears turning in his head as he tried to figure out how to explain the situation without sounding guilty. I waited. Sure enough, Oriana's tearful voice soon crackled through the speaker. "Julia, I'm so sorry. I hadn't seen Uncle and Auntie in so long, so I just came to visit. Ethan happened to be here, so he just helped me change my bandage. It wasn't a big deal. Please don't fight because of me." I chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "And which one of your eyes saw me fighting with him?" I asked. "You sound awfully flustered. Did you do something you're ashamed of?" "Julia." Ethan's voice cut in, cold and sharp with a warning. "My parents are here. Watch what you say. Oriana was just posting a picture. She didn't do anything wrong. She doesn't have to put up with your accusations." Perhaps my silence went on for too long, because he grew impatient. "What time are you done?" "I'll pick you up. Mom made dumplings." My chest tightened. I took a deep breath and forced a smile into my voice. "Ethan, about that house, if she's there, I won't be." Silence. A long, heavy one. I didn't know Oriana had put the call on speaker. My voice had echoed through the living room. Everyone had heard it. Ethan's patience finally snapped. His voice was ice. "Fine. Suit yourself." Then he hung up. This was the first Cold War of my 3-year marriage to Ethan. It didn't come too soon, nor too late. It arrived just in time for the premiere of Oriana's new stage play, Reuniting Lovers. The other teachers in my department couldn't stop talking about it. "I heard it's about getting back together with an ex." So touching. My friend saw it and said tons of people in the audience were crying. I tuned out the gossip, picked up the framed certificate of thanks ID had made, and headed to Ethan's hospital. Joseph was the one who met me. "Ethan's not here," he said. "Want to try another day?" He wore a light blue surgical mask, and his hands were tucked casually into the pockets of his white coat. He was cool and detached, as always. I smiled. "It's not for him. It's for you." I held out the frame. "To thank you for my surgery." Joseph's light-colored eyes studied me for a moment. He didn't say anything, just took the certificate and hung it on his office wall. "Dr. Joseph," I asked, "I should probably come to you to get my stitches out, right?" He nodded. "If your Ethan is too busy, you can come to me." And Ethan was definitely too busy. During our Cold War, he moved back to his parents' house. His visits there increased from twice a week to 4 times. But he never once called me. He was probably waiting for me to give in, to show up at the hospital and beg for his attention. But I never did. Instead, I deliberately scheduled all my follow-up appointments on the weekends, knowing Joseph would be there and Ethan wouldn't. After 2 weeks of this, Ethan finally lost his patience and called me. "Why do you keep going to Joseph?" he demanded. "For my follow-ups," I said simply. "My office hours are Monday through Thursday." "Why do you insist on waiting for the weekend to see him?" I let out a small laugh. "What's gotten into you? I have lectures Monday to Thursday. When else am I supposed to find the time?" His voice turned cold. "Julia, do you even know what you're doing?" Some people are like that. They check out of a relationship emotionally and then get paranoid, assuming their partner must be doing the same thing. I offered a helpful suggestion. "Why don't you just switch your office hours to the weekend?" Silence. Oriana's play was running on the weekends. He wouldn't miss it for the world. I hung up the phone and looked up, right into Joseph's calm, steady gaze. He was standing in the doorway of my hospital room. I paused. "What's wrong?" Joseph lowered his eyes, his long fingers brushing over my medical chart. "Julia, you've filled 3 prescriptions for sleeping pills this week. I can't give you any more." "It's fine," I said, forcing a smile. "I can just drink myself to sleep. Thanks for everything you've been doing." Joseph watched me for a moment, then suddenly asked, "Want to get a drink tonight?" "What?" He peeled off his rubber gloves and stood up straight. "It's a department dinner. Ethan should be there, too." So that was it. It wasn't unusual for spouses to attend these things, so I agreed to go. Ironically, Ethan, who never missed these gatherings, was a no-show. When I walked in alone, a wave of sympathetic glances came my way. During dinner, his colleagues went out of their way to include me in conversations. And the drinks Joseph placed in front of me were, whether intentionally or not, all mild and easy to drink. Before long, I was feeling a little lightheaded. Near the end of the meal, the department's group chat started buzzing. Joseph's phone was on the table, screen up, right next to me. So I saw it. A photo. It was Ethan, his back to the camera, standing in a kitchen and cooking. The photo was deleted less than 30 seconds later. A new message from Ethan popped up in its place. "Sorry about that. My wife was just messing around." Immediately, every head at the table turned to look at me. The friendly chatter died, and the room fell into a suffocating silence. I knew exactly what he was doing. Ethan was crossing the line. He loved the thrill of teetering on the edge, but he never actually took the plunge. He only cooked a meal for Oriana at his parents' house. A perfectly innocent act. I couldn't question it, or else I would be the one labeled as unreasonable. Honestly, I should have seen this coming. I'd already taught myself to accept these little betrayals with a calm indifference. It didn't even hurt anymore. After the dinner, the consensus was that Joseph should drive me home. Before I got in the car, a few of Ethan's female colleagues came over to give me a hug. "Don't overthink it, Julia," they said. Just get some rest. I'd had a bit to drink, so I just numbly thanked them, rested my head against the cool car window, and fell asleep. Joseph was a good driver. So steady, in fact, that when the car finally stopped in front of my apartment building, I didn't even wake up. It took him calling my name to pull me out of my dream. At some point, my phone had slipped off the seat and landed on his side of the car. Instinctively, I leaned over to grab it. And a strand of my hair got caught on his watch. The irony was so thick it was almost funny. A ridiculous, cliché plot twist. A helpless laugh escaped my lips. Sorry, I just. Joseph immediately unbuckled his watch and held it out, giving me space to free my hair. But before I could even thank him, the passenger door was yanked open from the outside. A gust of cold wind rushed in. Ethan stood there, his voice eerily calm, like the air before a storm. Julia, you had better explain to me what the hell you're doing. This was the first time I had ever seen him lose control like this. His voice was tight with a rage he could barely contain. His grip was like iron on my wrist as he pulled me out of Joseph's car. The alcohol-induced haze vanished instantly. I met his furious gaze with an icy calm of my own. Let go of me. I didn't do anything wrong. I saw everything, he snarled. For the first time, the ever-composed Professor Ethan looked truly unhinged. And suddenly, I remembered that day I was discharged from the hospital. The almost identical scene. A mocking smile touched my lips. My hair got tangled in his watch, I said, my voice sweet as poison. Don't misunderstand. Ethan must have remembered it, too. His furious expression froze on his face. And it was his reaction, his instinctive guilt, that disgusted me the most. Because I knew if he were truly innocent, if his conscience were clear, he would have argued with me. He would have stood his ground, insisted that he and Oriana were nothing, that I was the one being unreasonable. But Ethan didn't. He panicked. He wavered. He just let go of my wrist and stood there, speechless. Because in that moment in the car with Oriana, when she'd leaned toward him, he had thought about it. He had wanted that grand reunion, that long-awaited kiss. He had considered throwing his role as a husband away and pressing her against the car seat. It was only my arrival that had yanked him back to reality. It was only my presence that forced his pathetic excuse for a conscience to kick in. I turned away from him and gave Joseph a calm nod. I need to talk to my husband. Drive safely. Joseph nodded back and drove off, leaving us in a heavy, suffocating silence. I ignored Ethan and started walking toward the entrance of our building. Julia, let's just talk. Ethan reached for me again. But this time, I turned around. And I slapped him. The sharp crack of my palm against his cheek echoed in the quiet night. All the bottled-up humiliation, the resentment, the fury from the past few weeks had all exploded in that one instant. I remembered the sight of his back as he walked away from me in the operating room. I remembered the terror of being abandoned by the one person who was supposed to protect me. My entire body was trembling with rage. My voice was as cold as ice. Ethan, I said. Don't you fucking touch me. You disgust me. I didn't know how Ethan explained our fight to his family. All I knew was that he unilaterally declared our Cold War over and moved back in. He bought Marshmallow a mountain of new toys and started carrying the cat around constantly, parading him in front of me. Same old tricks. Julia, why don't you hold Marshmallow for a bit, he offered, holding the cat out to me. I took our cat and stroked his fur twice, my mind elsewhere. Just as a flicker of relief crossed Ethan's face, thinking I was about to forgive him, the doorbell rang. My parents were at the door. Julia, my mom said, we heard you two are going on a business trip? Yeah, I said, handing Marshmallow to my dad. Take him home with you for a few days. When will you be back? Not sure yet. Sensing the tension, my parents just nodded, took the cat carrier, and left. The moment the door clicked shut, I turned around. The color had drained from Ethan's face. I casually tossed the cat toy he'd just given me onto the floor. Think about the divorce papers, I said coolly. Marshmallow stays with me. The lawyers can handle the rest of it. Only then did it finally sink in. I was serious. His gentle, apologetic demeanor vanished. His voice hardened. I don't agree. Julia, Oriana, and I are innocent, he insisted. If you don't like her, I'll cut ties with her completely. Whatever you want, I'll do it. Just be happy. And just like that, I was being painted as the unreasonable one again. I pulled out a dining chair and sat down, my tone light. Ethan, who cares who you like? Can't I just want a divorce because I'm done with you? The words caught in his throat. He stared at me, and finally snapped. Is this because of Joseph? I took a slow sip of water. Ethan, don't be ridiculous. Joseph and I are innocent. I paused, letting my words sink in. But if you don't like him, I can cut ties with him, too. As long as you agree to the divorce, I'll do whatever you want. It took him a second. I had thrown his own empty words right back in his face. For the first time, I saw a look that was close to madness flash in his eyes. But I had no interest in arguing. You and Oriana can be whatever you say you are. Me and Joseph? Same thing. I let a small smile play on my lips. Pure. Innocent. Think it over, I said, standing up. We'll talk when you're ready to be serious. That one conversation sent our relationship plummeting to absolute zero. Ethan refused to sign the papers. We were at a stalemate. But soon, he learned what it felt like to be on the other side of his own games. Whether it was me bringing Joseph a thank you gift of fresh fruit to the hospital. Whether it was me defending Joseph's medical opinion in front of him. Whether it was the fact that when my incision ached, I messaged Joseph about it during dinner. Ethan's tightly controlled composure finally shattered. He slammed his chopsticks down on the table. Julia, what the hell do you want me to do? He exploded. I already cut Oriana off. How much longer are you going to drag this out? He shoved his phone across the table at me. Oriana's desperate, pleading messages filled the screen. Ethan, please just talk to me. Are you punishing me because I broke up with you all those years ago? I was wrong, okay? Let us just be friends. I promise I won't bother you again. I placed my own phone on the table next to his. Oriana still has feelings for you. Isn't it your responsibility to ignore her? Why should I have to give up my own attending physician just because you rejected her? My conversation with Joseph was as professional as it gets. Follow up on Saturday. Is your wound still hurting? Much better. Good. Then we'll prepare for stitch removal. Okay. There was nothing wrong with it. But for a surgeon like Ethan, his own wife choosing another doctor to remove her stitches was the ultimate insult. I knew exactly what he wanted to say, so I beat him to it. You weren't the one who operated on me, I said, looking him straight in the eye. So you don't need to worry about the follow-ups. I picked up my fork and took a bite of salad. I'm just someone who likes to see things through with consistency. Ethan sat in the living room, stewing in silence. Maybe it was just the rage, but after dinner, a dull, unbearable pain began to throb deep in my lower abdomen. Without a second thought, I grabbed my coat and purse, ready to go to the hospital. Ethan looked up, his eyes widening when he saw my pale face. What's wrong? I flinched away from his touch and opened the ride-share app on my phone. He saw the destination, the hospital, and immediately grabbed his own coat. It's late, he said. You'll never get a ride this time of night. Don't be stubborn, I'll drive you. He was right. But before he could take a step toward me, his phone, sitting on the coffee table, lit up and started ringing. Oriana. Maybe it was just pure, primal instinct, but I snatched the phone and hit decline. Ethan, I said, my voice strained. I don't feel well. Take me to the hospital. The phone rang again. Oriana. This time, without thinking, I answered it. If you fucking call again, I snarled into the phone, I swear to God, I will ruin you. Then I hurled it against the wall. The screen shattered. I don't know what came over me. Cold sweat beaded on my forehead as I swayed on my feet. The fight seemed to drain out of Ethan. He rushed to my side, supporting me as he led me toward the door. As we passed the entryway table, he bent down to pick up his broken phone. At that exact moment, the shattered screen flickered to life one last time. A text message from Oriana. Ethan, if this is really your choice, maybe the world would be better off without me. Ethan's face changed in an instant. He forgot where he was, forgot what he was doing. He fumbled to call her back, threw on his jacket, and bolted out the front door. He didn't even close it behind him. The slam of the main apartment door triggered the motion sensor lights in the hallway. A neighbor peeked out, her face a mixture of curiosity and concern. I couldn't hold on any longer. My knees gave out, and I collapsed to the floor. Please, I gasped, looking up at my neighbor. Take me to the hospital. I didn't know I was pregnant. I didn't know I was having a miscarriage. By the time Joseph arrived, breathless, at the emergency room, the doctor was already asking me a question. Do you want to try and keep the baby? If we don't act now, it will be very difficult to save it. But I already knew. I'd felt it on the way here. I had already made my decision. No, I said. Joseph stopped dead in the doorway. The person who rushed past him and into my room was one of the senior nurses from Ethan's department, a warm-hearted older woman. Thinking Ethan and I had just had a fight, she started trying to console me while grabbing my phone to call him. This is a serious decision, honey. Where's Ethan? How could he not be here for something like this? To someone from her generation, a child was a bond, a decision two people made together. I was suddenly so tired. I didn't have the strength to stop her. The call connected almost instantly. But the first voice that came through wasn't Ethan's. It was Oriana's, slightly hoarse and dripping with smug victory. Julia? So sorry your little winning streak is over. Ethan's in bed with me right now. Did you make him mad? He was very passionate just a minute ago. The nurse's face went white. She slammed the end call button. By the time she tried to call back, the phone was off. I was used to being pitted. I looked up at the horrified nurse and gave her a calm smile. Sorry about that, I said. He cheated. I guess I've made a fool of myself. But maybe this wasn't so bad. After all, hospitals are hubs for gossip. And for the ever-righteous Professor Ethan to have his scandal exposed so publicly, his downfall was only a matter of time. The procedure didn't take long. Afterward, I leaned against the cool wall of the hospital corridor while Joseph spoke with the doctor about my post-op instructions. When he was done, he came and sat beside me, handing me a cup of warm water. The heat seeped into my palms. Thank you, I said. I hesitated for a moment, then looked at him. Dr. Joseph, I know I used you to get back at Ethan. If that caused you any trouble, I'm sorry. Joseph just gazed out the window at the dark city skyline, his expression unreadable. There's nothing to apologize for, he said quietly. Julia, I'm not some clueless 20-year-old. What? Seeing my confused stare, he just stood up and said casually, forget it. Wang Jia will be here in a minute. She'll take you to Ethan's on-call room to get some rest. Ethan didn't find out I'd been pregnant until the next day. By the time he rushed to the hospital, I was just stepping out of the rest area. Julia. His voice was ragged with anxiety as he hurried toward me, cupping my face in his hands. Relief washed over his features. We had a child, he breathed. He must not have noticed. He still reeked of Oriana's perfume. I frowned. Who told you that? Wang Jia did. Wang Jia. The same well-meaning nurse who called him last night. Ethan had always been good at hearing only what he wanted to hear. Just then, Oriana appeared behind him, smiling sweetly. But under that smile, I could see the jealousy and provocation simmering. Julia, she cooed, I heard you were pregnant. Ethan came running over to me last night, he must have been out of his mind with worry. She thought she was delivering some kind of cryptic, devastating blow, and she was savoring every second of it. What she didn't know was that her little performance on the phone had already made the rounds at the hospital. Nearby, a few nurses and doctors exchanged knowing glances. I saw them pull out their phones, subtly snapping pictures and pointing at her. They were connecting the dots, finally realizing she was the shameless homewrecker from the phone call. The atmosphere grew thick with tension. Oriana hesitated, a flicker of confusion on her face, but she quickly brushed it aside. I suddenly found the whole situation hilarious. A real, genuine laugh bubbled up out of me. Ethan frowned. Julia, what's so funny? Did no one tell you? I asked, my smile widening. I got rid of it. Ethan froze. What do you mean? Seeing the cold mockery in my eyes, his face twisted. Julia. Who gave you the right to make that decision on your own? I'm your husband. The hallway fell into a strange, ringing silence. I didn't bother to hide the ridicule in my voice. Oh, now you remember you're my husband? Where were you when I needed you last night? His gaze darkened. You called me? Yes, I said clearly, for the whole world to hear. Oriana answered. She told me you were in bed with her, passionately keeping her company, and that I shouldn't interrupt. Gasps echoed down the hall. Oh my God, that mistress is insane. And she still has the nerve to show up here and parade in front of the wife? Ethan's entire body went rigid. His hands trembled as he slowly turned to face the now terrified Oriana. Is that true? Her face went deathly pale. Only now did she seem to realize that the curious stares had turned to looks of disgust. Something had gone terribly, terribly wrong. She panicked, shaking her head desperately. She's lying, Ethan, she's making it all up. I didn't. I calmly delivered the final blow. She didn't just say it to me. Your colleague, Wang Jia, heard it too. I took a step closer to Ethan, my voice eerily steady. Your mistress is this shameless, Ethan. And you have the audacity to stand here and ask me about your child? Oriana completely broke down. She sobbed uncontrollably, and under the withering stares of everyone in the hospital lobby, she finally fled in disgrace. Ethan just stood there, looking like his soul had left his body. He didn't move for a long, long time. News travels fast in a small town, and even faster in a big city. By that afternoon, the gossip had already spread from the medical community to the theater world. The industry group chats were ruthless. So proud of being a homewrecker she had to announce it on a recorded line? Go live stream it next time, sweetie. She always acted so high and mighty during rehearsals, refusing to follow anyone back. Turns out she's just trashy. The next day, I ran into Oriana when I went to the hospital to pick up my prescription. Her eyes were swollen and red. She blocked my path, pleading with me. Julia, we don't have to make this so ugly, do we? She begged. If you just help me explain, just clear my name, I'll leave Ethan for good. Clear what up? I asked. Just tell everyone I didn't really say those things. Please, she sobbed. I can't lose my job over this. I reached out and grabbed a fistful of her hair, my voice steady and low. Oriana, didn't I tell you I would ruin you? Dragging her by the hair, I marched her straight to Ethan's office and shoved her inside. I'll give you two a choice, I said, looking from her to him. I have the recording. Either you lose your job or Ethan does. You two can figure it out. I let a small, cold smile touch my lips. But if I were you, Oriana, I'd take the fall. 1, because you just love him so much. And 2, if Ethan loses his job, are you planning on supporting your dear Professor Ethan with your acting salary? That day, through the closed door of his office, I heard Ethan shouting, his voice bordering on hysterical. But my own heart was completely calm. Oriana was crying. Ethan, I was just being possessive. I just hated her, I didn't want her to have you. We were supposed to be together, why should she? Enough, Ethan's voice cut through her sobs, sharp and cold. You're just a mistress. Oriana stared at him, her face a mask of disbelief. Ethan, that's not what you said before. You said you loved me. Why would I love you instead of my wife? The ridicule in his tone was scathing. Am I insane? Oriana crumbled. Then divorce her. We can move away, start over somewhere else. I'll be your wife. Forget it, Ethan's voice was distant, dead. You've already destroyed my life. I can't afford to take you with me. See? When it didn't cost him anything, a first love was a perfect, untouchable memory you put on a pedestal. But the moment he started to lose everything, that perfect memory turned into trash he couldn't wait to throw out. Honestly, I was just toying with them. I never intended to let either of them off the hook. After Oriana stumbled out of his office, I walked in and threw the divorce papers on his desk. I'm not moving out, and I don't want to see your face, I said. So don't even think about coming back to the apartment. Don't fight me on this, Ethan. Let's not make this any uglier than it already is. He just sat there, pale and silent. When I got home, I threw all of his belongings out the front door. I packed up his clothes and suits and shipped them directly to Oriana's address. Then, just for fun, I sent her a text. Here you go. Should last you a month. Enjoy all that passion. Since Oriana was an actress, she wasn't exactly anonymous. Curious netizens quickly dug up her real identity. The online forums exploded. So that whole reuniting with my soulmate play was actually just about her wrecking a marriage? Gross. I would kill to hear that recording where she taunted the wife. OMG you guys, I found it. Check out the blogger at City Life Sounds Sick Beats edition. She was vlogging in the hospital and accidentally recorded the whole mistress phone call in the background. I never expected someone had actually recorded it. And even remixed the audio. He was so passionate with me. The phrase went viral. Oriana became internet famous for all the wrong reasons. She was ambushed by street interviewers, caught on camera running away in humiliation. People even started protesting outside her theater. Is Miss Passion still employed here? The theater better have fired her by now. A few days later, the theater released an official statement. Oriana's contract had been terminated. After that, I never saw her again. In the blink of an eye, autumn arrived. Ethan's scandal had blown up. The hospital fired him. I took an extended leave from the university to recover, waiting for him to sign the divorce papers. In just 1 month, everything had changed. The sting of betrayal still found me in the dead of night. We had beautiful moments, breathless kisses, heart-racing touches, and laughter that felt like it would last forever. It was because of those good memories that the past 3 years now felt like nothing more than a dream. A beautiful dream, but when I woke up, all that was left was a raw and bleeding reality. I felt hurt. I felt wronged. I felt angry. But in the end, it wasn't unbearable. Time, I knew, would eventually smooth it all over. A few nights later, Ethan called. I was brushing Marshmallow's fur, so I put the phone on speaker. His voice echoed in the empty house. I thought he was calling to discuss the divorce settlement. But instead, he started talking about the past. How ridiculous. The one who did the betraying was now the one pretending to be the most sentimental. Julia, do you remember that time at the park? You wanted to cross that stupid rope bridge, so I carried you on my shoulders? I was calm. I remember. It was my birthday, 3 months after our wedding. The first couple to the finish line won a little cake. But you tripped and dropped me in the water. Ethan chuckled, a sad sound. Yeah. I felt so guilty. Later, at the hot pot restaurant, you got drunk, kissed me, and told me you didn't blame me. He paused. That was the first time I realized I had feelings for you. I said nothing, just patted Marshmallow on the butt as he hopped around the couch. Do you remember the night of your car accident? Ethan asked again. I do. You got hurt protecting me. I cried. And Christmas that year. I remember. And New Year's Eve, when I was stuck at the hospital and you brought me dumplings. I remember. And the sunrise we saw on that snowy night. The sunset over the lake. I remember. He fell silent for a long time. When he finally spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. Julia, our memories, we have enough to last a lifetime. Yes, I said, a small smile on my face. Enough to last a lifetime. But the moment you slept with Oriana, I continued, my voice still light, none of those memories had anything to do with you anymore. You're the one who threw it all away. You're the one who broke our vows. So you're the one who has to live with it. I heard the shaky breath he let out, a sound strained with pain. Ethan, I'm not going to erase our past, I told him honestly. Because I was happy once. I was in love once. But that's all it is now, the past. The fact that I can sit here and talk about it with you doesn't mean I can't let go. It means I already have. No one promises you forever, Ethan. People change. I've changed. I won't turn back. And I won't forgive you. A long, heavy silence stretched between us. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. There's no chance for me anymore, is there? I stroked Marshmallow's soft ears. Just send over the signed divorce papers, Ethan, I said, my voice gentle but firm. Let's end this with a clean break. Ethan's perspective. After signing the papers, Ethan and Julia entered the mandatory 30-day cooling-off period. When he first got married, 30 days had felt like an eternity. An arranged marriage, a blind date, it was bound to come with 1,000 little annoyances he wasn't ready for. He'd been frustrated then, eager for it to just be over. But 3 years later, that same 30-day period felt like it was slipping through his fingers too fast. The marriage he once couldn't wait to escape was now unraveling right before his eyes. In those final days, Julia never forgave him. The soft-hearted, gentle wife from his memories had walked away without a single backward glance. Ethan often felt that the month he'd lost his way was nothing more than a bizarre dream. His first love, once a perfect, cherished memory, had become someone he didn't even recognize. But it wasn't just Oriana who had changed. He had, too. The next time Ethan saw Julia, autumn had fully settled in. The trees lining the streets were bare. She was dressed more warmly than the people around her, as if she felt the cold more deeply now. Ethan thought about the child they had lost. A dull, familiar ache spread through his chest. Wrapped in a scarf, Julia walked toward him, her tone neutral. Sorry, the traffic was bad. Ethan glanced past her shoulder at the street she'd come from. It was empty. His heart, which had been hanging in suspense, felt a faint, stupid flicker of relief. But mostly, it just hurt. I'm in a hurry, she said. Let's get this over with. Julia turned and headed for the entrance of the Civil Affairs office. For a split second, Ethan had the overwhelming urge to grab her, to pull her into his arms and tell her he regretted everything. He wanted to tell her that Oriana had been nothing but a stubborn ghost from his youth. That the one he truly loved, the one he couldn't live without, was her. But the thought vanished as quickly as it came. Julia had warned him. If he fought the divorce, she wouldn't be merciful. His parents were getting older. He was a doctor in his late 30s with no job, facing the reality of having to move far away for work. If he took that job, he might never come back. His parents had already lost so much face because of him. They'd both fallen ill from the stress and still hadn't fully recovered. He couldn't afford to lose the last shred of dignity he had left. There weren't many people getting divorced that day. The entire process was a blur. When the official stamped their papers and handed him his divorce certificate, it felt impossibly heavy, like it was crushing the air from his lungs. Julia stood before him, bathed in the golden autumn light. The angle of the sun cast a sharp, clean line between them. She was in the light, and he was in the shadow. Ethan stood in the cold shade and stared at her. "What are your plans now?" Her voice was distant. "Nothing special. Just work. Live my life." The wind tousled a strand of her hair. Instinctively, Ethan reached out to smooth it down for her. But just before his fingers could touch her, she turned her head toward the street. Her hair slipped right through his grasp. A black car had pulled up to the curb. Julia walked toward it without a moment's hesitation, not even sparing him a proper goodbye. Ethan's eyes fixated on the hands gripping the car's steering wheel. His mind was a mess of fear and uncertainty. He didn't dare take a step forward. He was afraid that if he got any closer, he would see Joseph sitting in the driver's seat. Or worse, another man he didn't even know. So he just stood there, staring at those hands, not even blinking as the autumn wind stung his eyes. The car drove away. Ethan never got a clear look. He left his hometown and didn't return for 3 years. On New Year's Eve, he sat alone in a cold, sterile hospital duty room. Outside, the howling winter wind couldn't drown out the sound of fireworks and the laughter of families celebrating together. Once again, he hadn't gone home for the holidays. His parents were still disappointed in him. Most of his friends had cut ties with him after the scandal. Ethan was well and truly alone. And so, on that lonely New Year's Eve, the memory of Julia braving a snowstorm to bring him dumplings became a dream he could never reach. Just after midnight, his phone buzzed with generic, automated New Year's greetings. And then, one particular notification popped up from a former colleague. "Did you hear? Julia got married." Ethan stared at the message. He sat there, motionless, for a long, long time. His hands trembled, but in the end, he couldn't bring himself to ask who the groom was. Instead, he opened his old chat history with Julia. The last message was from 3 years ago. Her, asking him to meet at the Civil Affairs office. Ethan hesitated for a long time. Then, his fingers shaking, he typed out a message. "Congratulations on your wedding." Outside, a string of firecrackers exploded, shaking his chest with every boom. He took a deep breath and hit send. The message failed. A single red exclamation mark popped up beside it. At that moment, the fireworks stopped. The world fell into absolute silence. Just like his heart. Withered and desolate.